50 days transformed by prayer.
Hi boys and girls, I'm back with another story for you. Today's story is about deer. And as you probably know, a female deer is called a doe, and she has no horns on her head. And a male deer is called a buck, and he has horns on his head that grow and grow. Sometimes he can have very big antlers, they're called. Very big antlers by the end of the summer. Now, we have a cabin up at Dory Lake. It's a big, big lake with a big forest around it. And the deer started coming several years ago. They started coming to our house and hoping for little bits of grain and food. So my husband built a big round feeder for the deer, and we fill it full of grain that we bring from Saskatoon. We carry up bags of grain, and every day the deer come to our cabin to be fed. And it's very interesting because deer are wild and they're so easily frightened. But we, after feeding them for several days and weeks, we discovered that they became quite tame. And there was one deer in particular, a doe, that came to our house every morning at 7 o'clock. And she would stand outside our screened-in porch and she would look in for her food. And my husband took to calling her Susie. So he would say, "Come Susie, come Susie," and she would follow him to the garage, and he would open up the big garage doors and she would stand and wait, and he'd fill a bucket full of grain, and Susie would come right up to him and he would feed her out of the bucket. And as she got more and more comfortable with him, he was able to scratch her ears, and she would bend her head forward and he would scratch behind each ear. He was able to pet her, and she was really quite fond of him. Well, one thing about deer is they don't like to share, and when they're lucky enough to find a big round pot of grain, they want to be the only one there. And sometimes we've had as many as 8 and 7 different deer all trying to get in their heads into the bucket. Now, I want to tell you a story about 2 deer who were very selfish. One of the deer, we call her Della. I have no idea why we picked the name Della, but this is a picture of Della. And Della would come every day to the feeder. One thing about Della was she had twin babies one year. Babies are called fawns. And the year that Della had the two babies at the same time, the twins, she brought them. First part of May, when we first went up to the cabin, she brought her 2 babies and she showed them to us, and then she took them away and hid them in the woods. And every day after that, when she came for her food, she didn't bring her babies. The mother deer hide their babies in the tall grass while they go and get food for them. So this is Della, and Della was, this one particular day, Della was eating, but she was watching very closely in case any other deer should come along. And then along came Susie, our favorite. And Susie went along over into the garage with my husband, and she had her dinner out of the bucket. But she wasn't satisfied, and she's very selfish. So she started to try to take the dinner away from the other deer, away from Della. Now, what deer do when they don't want anybody to get into their food is they have a really loud snorting sound. And the other thing they do is they stamp one foot, and the other deer, they leave. Well, this time Susie was determined that she was going to eat grain with Della, and Della was determined that Susie was going to have none. So Della was stomping her feet and snorting, and Susie started stamping her feet and snorting. Now, we know that deer don't understand human beings. They don't know what we're saying. But a very interesting thing happened. My husband decided, sort of as a little joke, he went and he stood between the 2 deer. And he put out his hand to one and he said, "Della, stop that. You stay over there and eat." And then he turned to Susie and he said, "Susie, you go over there and eat. You stop this." And a very funny thing happened. Instead of doing what he said, because of course they didn't understand, but it was as if they got the spirit of sharing. And all of a sudden, there they were, eating together. No fighting, they were sharing. And you know, this is what Jesus wants us to do. He wants us to share. Share our food if we have some and someone else has none. Share our toys, share our books. And another thing he'd like us to share is to tell other people about Jesus. And that's called sharing the news about Jesus. So as you go about your day, each day, try to be very kind and to share all that you have with others.
I found myself being so active in the community, meeting with each and every community member. I was well known in the community and getting to know people. I met this special person within the community which has impacted my life, not only as an individual, but to get to understand where she's coming from. And while getting to know her, I have drawn even closer, not only to God, but to the Adventist Church at large. While she was telling me her story about while she was in the Adventist Church and what made her leave the Adventist Church, I was shocked, because seeing this woman who is very energetic and friendly and vibrant, and seeing what she has done for especially children and young adults and adults at large within the community, has warmed my heart and also warmed others' hearts back home in Jamaica. But while sharing her life with her within the Longville Park community in Jamaica, there came this point in her life where she was suffering from cancer. While she was suffering from this terrible illness, I spent my time getting to know God for myself, because although I haven't shared the reason why she came out of the Adventist Church, I'm just going to keep it at that for now, because I don't want to spread her story too much. I got to understand that the cancer had started to spread towards her different ligaments and bones within her body. While this was taking place, I started to pray to God, asking Him to strengthen her, although she's going through this heart ache and pains within her life while suffering from cancer. And while I was there praying for her, trying to figure out ways and means to help her to cover expenses to do this cancer surgery, I remember one day I went on my knees. As I went on my knees, I felt this presence shone over me. And it's a feeling that I am not able to explain. It's an unusual feeling. And while I was there praying and pleading to God and asking Him for strength for this woman to recover from this illness, suddenly my phone rang. When my phone rang, it was a call to say that you have received a certain amount of funds to go towards helping this young woman who is suffering from cancer with her surgery. I started to cry tears of joy because I knew at that time and currently that I serve a God that is always willing and able to do whatever He said He will do. Going through that experience and understanding God for myself has made me be able to not only assess and accommodate and welcome God at all times in my life, but it has made me get to understand how to deal with people around me with different personalities, with different backgrounds. As one thing I have learned most is that I share this in a class setting, that no matter where you're coming from, no matter what struggles you do face in life, there's nothing that can turn you away unless you choose to let that issue turn into a mess. But getting to understand God and knowing Him for yourself will make a big difference in not only your life, but somebody else's life.
Transformed by prayer.
A father and a son decided to take care of their garden. At the middle of the lawn there was a large stone. "Luke," said the father, "please do not forget to remove the stone." Luke tried hard for a long time to move the stone, but it did not budge. "Father, I can't. This stone is never going to be moved from here." The father, who was by his side watching, said, "Son, I see that you are using all of your strength to move this stone. However, you forgot something. I know that if you just do that, you will succeed in moving the stone." "Father, what is it that I forgot?" With a smile on his face, the father said, "Luke, don't you see that I am standing by your side all this time? I am willing to help you move the stone. The problem is that you did not ask me to give you a hand." From that moment on, father and son worked together, and in no time they removed the stone from the garden. "Father, we did it, didn't we, Father?" Asking for help is crucial for success in the accomplishment of any task. It is this kind of request for help that God is waiting for us to make. We are not dealing with a reluctant God, but with a loving Father who is always by our side, just waiting for us to ask Him for His help. God asks us to pray not because He does not know what we need and consequently needs us to inform Him. Rather, He knows everything, even how many hairs we have. But He wants us to realize that we need Him. It is through prayer that man recognizes his limitations and his need for power from above. And when we pray and seek God, our Father, things do happen. This is evident in the experience of the prophet Elijah, as described by James. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. As a prophet of God, Elijah performed extraordinary things. But the message of James to us is that Elijah was an ordinary person, ordinary as you and me. And if God could use an ordinary person like Elijah to accomplish extraordinary things, this means that God can use us as well. We just need to trust Him and ask. What can transform an unknown, ordinary person into a powerful instrument in God's hands? Prayer. Elijah was passionate about prayer. He's trusted God's word and prayed with faith. Elijah impacted his own life, the life of his family, and his whole nation through prayer. J.G. Ryle defined prayer as follows. Prayer is the simplest of acts. It is simply speaking to God. It neither needs learning nor wisdom nor book knowledge to begin it. It needs nothing but heart and will. The weakest infant can cry when he is hungry. The poorest beggar can hold out his hands for alms and does not wait to find words. The most ignored man will find something to say to God if he only has a mind. Power is within your reach. There is no need for qualification or specialty to receive the prayer blessing. The only thing to do is to be willing to pray. Why not pray at this moment? Why not use the power of God through prayer? As you seek the Almighty, remember, prayer is the key in the hand of faith to unlock heaven's storehouse where are treasured the boundless resources of omnipotence.